Hello, Chosen One. The darkness has been pressing hard this week because it sees what you can't see yet, the door that's about to open. I know exactly how heavy the atmosphere has felt around you over these past few days, and I know the sheer, inexplicable exhaustion that has been pulling at your physical body and your spirit. You have been walking through a thick, suffocating, almost tangible fog of spiritual and emotional resistance. You have been feeling a bizarre, unexplainable fatigue that seems to settle deep within your bones and your nervous system, making even the simplest tasks feel like moving mountains. You have been looking around your environment, wondering why absolutely everything feels so incredibly difficult right now, why the attacks against your peace seem so highly coordinated, and why the people around you have suddenly begun acting so strangely, so entirely out of character, and so quietly hostile. You have been isolated in your own mind, questioning your own sanity, wondering if you did something horribly wrong to invite this barrage of silent sabotage, covert manipulation, and passive-aggressive friction. You are looking at the chaos, the sudden betrayals, the unmasking of individuals you thought were firmly in your corner, and the sheer density of the opposition, and you are mistakenly believing that you are failing. You are thinking that perhaps you have failed a critical spiritual test, that you have stepped entirely out of alignment, or that the universe is somehow punishing you for a misstep you cannot even identify. Let me be unequivocally clear with you right now, today, in this exact moment. You have not failed. The absolute, undeniable truth is the exact opposite of what your anxiety is telling you. The enemy is not attacking you because you are weak, and the enemy is certainly not attacking you because you are failing. The darkness is launching a frantic, desperate, scorched earth campaign against your life, precisely because of what is coming. This orchestrated chaos is not evidence of your defeat. It is the absolute, undeniable proof of your imminent promotion. You are standing on the precipice of a paradigm shift so massive, so revolutionary to your existence, that the lower realms of consciousness are absolutely terrified of the authority you are about to step into. They are throwing every possible distraction, every toxic individual, and every triggering memory at you in a last-ditch, pathetic effort to lower your frequency before you cross the threshold of this new era. This resistance you are feeling is simply the atmospheric friction of your rapid ascension. I am declaring to you right now that this brutal cycle of spiritual warfare, this heavy, unbearable fatigue, is coming to an abrupt and permanent end. It is ending within the next 24 hours, by the very time you finish listening to this message. And it is not ending because of a random stroke of luck or a sudden change in the weather. It is ending because of the agonizing, silent, invisible internal work you have relentlessly completed in the dark. The foundation has been laid, the spiritual coordinates have been locked in, and the deliverance is here. I'm Brian. For decades, I've been writing spiritual content and helping people to achieve real awakening, guiding those who carry the heavy, solitary mantle of the chosen through the treacherous landscapes of their own evolution. I study the raw, uncomfortable truths of human psychology, spiritual dynamics, and the hidden mechanics of the soul. Today, we are going to talk about something that is happening in your life right now, something that is completely baffling the people who secretly prayed for your downfall. You see, the people around you, the insecure, the toxic, the highly performative individuals who have been quietly trying to mimic you or bring you down, are currently exposing themselves because their minds are breaking under the weight of a reality they cannot comprehend. They are absolutely shocked by your protection. They thought they had you cornered. They thought their whispers and their calculated betrayals had finally dismantled you, but instead you are standing taller, shining brighter, and moving with a quiet power that deeply terrifies them. They have questions they cannot ask you, and it is driving them insane. Before we break down the exhaustive psychological architecture of exactly why these people are currently melting down over your divine immunity, I need you to subscribe to the channel right now. Hit the like button to seal your energetic agreement with this message. Drop a comment with what point hit you hardest so I know where you are in your journey, and share this video with another chosen one who needs to understand the power of the shield they carry. Step 1. Dismantle the pedestal you built for their potential and acknowledge the impenetrable architecture of your unseen fortress. There is a profoundly uncomfortable truth about human nature that you must accept if you are going to survive the high altitude of your calling. Not everyone in your circle was praying for your success. In fact, some of the people standing closest to you, the ones you poured your heart and soul into, were the ones quietly banking on your failure. You must understand the deep psychological shock they are experiencing right now as they watch you survive things that were mathematically designed to destroy you. For years, you operated under the crippling, bleeding empathy of the Chosen One. You looked at the broken, toxic, and highly competitive people in your orbit, and you did not see them for the dangerous, performative actors they actually were. You saw them for the healed, actualized beings they had the potential to become. You projected your own beautiful, redemptive heart onto their hollow chests. You gave them the benefit of the doubt so many times that the doubt became a permanent, toxic resident in your own mind. You built a massive, glittering pedestal for them, based entirely on an illusion. But the spiritual scales have finally fallen from your eyes, and as you forcefully dismantle that pedestal, you are forcing them to stand on the ground of their own actual behavior. They calculated the precise trajectory of your downfall based on their own manipulative actions. They watched the betrayals unfold. They monitored the financial or emotional hits you took. They saw the isolation slowly wrapping around you like a snake, and they eagerly anticipated the moment your spirit would finally snap. To the toxic, performative individual, your destruction was supposed to be the ultimate validation of their own life choices. If you, the authentic, spiritually grounded Chosen One, could be broken, then their superficial, mask-wearing existence would suddenly be justified. But you didn't break. You bent. You swayed in the violent winds of their covert slander. You retreated into the quiet sanctuary of your own soul, and then you did the one thing they never accounted for. You began to radically heal. You must contrast your organic, deeply rooted alignment with their desperate, frantic calculations. When an imitator builds their life on aesthetics, manipulation, and social leverage, they view the entire world as a cold, transactional chessboard. Every relationship is a negotiation. Every kindness is a down payment for a future favor. They assumed you were playing the exact same game, just with less skill and more gullibility. So, when they deployed their tactics against you, the smear campaigns, the exclusion from the group, the subtle, mind-bending gaslighting, they expected a highly predictable reaction. They expected you to unravel, to beg for their approval, to fight back in a chaotic way that would allow them to comfortably play the victim. Instead, you gave them absolutely nothing. You retreated into your spiritual fortress and allowed the divine covering to absorb the entire impact of their weaponry. This is the exact moment their reality began to fracture. They are staring at you right now, completely baffled by the fact that the weapons formed against you not only failed to prosper, but seemingly disintegrated upon impact. Psychologically speaking, this triggers a severe narcissistic collapse within the minds of your hidden enemies. They are terrified of your light because your survival forces them to confront their own ultimate powerlessness. They are frantically reviewing their calculations, wondering how you bypassed the destruction they virtually guaranteed for you. This fear is compounding exponentially because you have stopped following the script they wrote for you. They handed you the role of the reactive, emotional casualty. As long as you played that part, They felt safe. But you dropped the script, walked off their stage, and built your own theater. This shock is the ultimate proof that you are no longer operating under the miserable laws of human manipulation. You are operating under the supreme jurisdiction of divine favor. Think of this dynamic like watching someone try to drown a fish. They have expended all this dark, heavy energy, dragged you into the deep, turbulent water, held you under the surface with their lies and manipulations, and are standing there waiting for you to stop thrashing and expire. But instead of suffocating, you just breathe. You grow gills. You swim deeper into the abyss, illuminating the dark water with your own organic bioluminescence, completely undisturbed by the very element they thought would kill you. Or imagine them trying to catch lightning in a plastic cup. They saw your brilliance and thought they could contain it with their cheap, synthetic, manipulative tools. Instead, the raw voltage of your authenticity simply melted their container. This is the intensely goofy, almost cartoonish reality of those trying to compete with a divine calling. They are operating with the physics of the mundane world, trying to calculate your demise using petty human math, while you are operating under the laws of spiritual aerodynamics. Their shock is not just surprise, it is an existential terror. When the trap fails, they are forced to confront the horrifying reality that you are protected by something infinitely larger than their malice. You must dismantle the idea that you just got lucky. It was not luck that shielded your mind from their psychological warfare. It was the impenetrable barrier of your spiritual alignment. Acknowledge this protection. Own it down to your very bones. Walk in the terrifyingly calm certainty that you are shielded by forces that your enemies cannot even begin to comprehend, let alone dismantle. They are locked out of your psyche, freezing in the cold of their own toxicity, wondering why their manipulation tactics, which work flawlessly on everyone else, bounce harmlessly off the impenetrable armor of your self-respect. Let them freeze. Let them wonder. You have a massive kingdom to govern within your own soul, and they are no longer permitted to cross the drawbridge. Step 2. Recognize the catastrophic meltdown of their counterfeit identity and the absolute absurdity of their performative mimicry. As a chosen one, your calling is not something you learned from a weekend seminar. It is not an aesthetic you downloaded from a social media mood board, and it is certainly not a persona you put on to impress the masses. Your calling is an organic, cellular, undeniable anointing that radiates from the very core of your being. It was forged in the blinding fires of profound suffering, deep isolation, and radical, unflinching self-honesty. Now, you must actively contrast this immense, grounded, organic light with the frantic, manufactured shine of the performative imitators who have desperately tried to position themselves as your peers or your superiors. These are the individuals who watched your rise, studied your cadence, analyzed your magnetism, and arrogantly decided they could simply copy and paste your spiritual authority into their own hollow lives. They are the ones who suddenly adopted your vocabulary, mirrored your hobbies, bought the clothes you wear, and attempted to wear your exact energy like a cheap, poorly fitting costume. The deep psychological truth that you must grasp is that these individuals are completely, fundamentally empty. They suffer from a profound lack of core identity, a terrifying spiritual amnesia that forces them to constantly cannibalize the personalities, ideas, and aesthetics of those who possess true self-generating light. Right now, they are currently melting down because they are realizing the horrifying, embarrassing limits of their mimicry. They copied your words, but they could not copy your frequency. They mimicked your style, but they could not replicate your substance. They wanted the absolute glory of your harvest, but they completely bypassed the agonizing, lonely winters where you planted the seeds in frozen, unforgiving soil with your bare, bleeding hands. They are terrified and shocked by your protection because they assumed that since they looked like you and sounded like you on the completely superficial surface, they would magically receive the same divine backing and universal favor that you effortlessly possess. But the universe cannot be scammed. The divine cannot be mocked by a counterfeit. When the spiritual warfare inevitably hit them, because to boldly carry the aesthetic of the light is to inevitably invite the attention of the dark, they completely collapsed. They have no internal anchor. They are discovering in real time that you cannot fight actual high-level spiritual battles with a plastic rented sword. They are frantic because the script of mimicry they stole from you does not work for them. When you speak your truth, mountains move, toxic elements scatter, and doors open. When they recite the exact same words, the universe responds with deafening, humiliating silence. The strict physics of the spiritual realm dictate that the anointing is not transferable through observation, it is earned through transformation. Because they violently refuse to undergo the transformation, their imitation is entirely devoid of power. It is the ultimate metaphor of watching a frail, terrified peasant put on the stolen, heavy, custom-forged, pure iron armor of a seasoned king. They strut into the middle of the battlefield, expecting the opposing army to bow down in reverence. But because they have absolutely zero spiritual muscle mass, the sheer weight of the armor instantly crushes them to the ground. They cannot even lift the sword they are trying to wield. Or imagine someone meticulously painting a rusty, broken-down car to look exactly like a high-speed racer, completely ignoring the fact that there is absolutely no engine under the hood. They look the part from a distance, but the moment the race begins, they cannot move a single inch forward. This is the deeply goofy, incredibly hollow, and fundamentally sad pantomime of the people trying to compete with your divine calling. It is profoundly embarrassing to watch them sweat profusely through their performative costumes, pretending to be unbothered while their knees are actively knocking together. They are reading from a teleprompter that is glitching while you are speaking directly from the heart of the cosmos. Their shock at your protection is rooted in their realization that there is a spiritual meritocracy that they cannot hack, cheat, or manipulate their way into. Your immunity to their sabotage highlights the severe, unforgiving difference between someone who was called by the divine and someone who simply called themselves out of sheer narcissism. They are exhausted from the sheer caloric output of maintaining a fake identity, waking up every single day and having to actively remember who they are pretending to be just to keep the audience fooled. Meanwhile, you are being naturally sustained by the endless renewable energy of your authentic soul. Let them scramble for a new script. Let them panic as their counterfeit identity dissolves into the mud under the glaring sun of your truth. Your only job is to remain the original masterpiece, completely unbothered by the cheap forgeries that fade entirely when the real fire touches them. Step 3. Radically withdraw your energetic life support and force them to suffocate on the reality of their own unhealed void. To truly master the dynamics of your current elevation and fully understand the sheer panic of your detractors, you have to look closely at the invisible energetic economy running between you and the highly performative people trying to bring you down. Toxic individuals do not generate their own light. They are fundamentally incapable of self-sustaining spiritual or emotional energy. Therefore, they must operate as energetic parasites, desperately attaching themselves to the brightest, most authentic life source they can find in the room, which is inevitably you. But a parasite cannot feed unless the host participates, even unconsciously. For years, you unknowingly fed them through your reactions, your deep empathy, and your misguided desire to heal everyone around you. Every time you defended yourself against a false accusation, every time you over-explained your boundaries, every time you let their subtle, passive-aggressive jabs ruin your afternoon, you were handing them the very life force they needed to survive. They relied entirely on your emotional dysregulation. Your anger, your tears, and your frustration were the currency they used to buy a temporary sense of superiority. The contrast between you and them is staggering when viewed through this analytical lens. You possess a direct connection to the divine, an internal wellspring of peace, creativity, and resilience that replenishes itself organically in the quiet moments of your solitude. They, on the other hand, possess only a broken script, a series of manipulative tactics designed to siphon energy from those who actually do the grueling internal work. The reason they are absolutely frantic and losing their minds right now is that you have decisively, unapologetically severed the psychological umbilical cord that once connected their fragile ego to your emotional state. You stopped reacting. You looked at their bait, recognized the rusty, poisoned hook hiding just beneath the surface, and you simply walked away without saying a word. This non-reaction is not merely a behavioral shift. It is a violent, necessary energetic starvation. Without your reaction, they have no proof that they matter. Without your frustration, their power is instantly nullified to absolute zero. When you radically withdraw your participation, you do not merely end the argument, you collapse the entire reality they have constructed around you. They are now standing on a stage, shouting their lines, pointing fingers at an empty chair, desperately waiting for a response that will never, ever come. The silence you have given them is not a passive thing. It is an active, heavy, suffocating force. It echoes back to them all of their own rotting insecurities. When you refuse to fight back, you deny them the opportunity to play the victim. When you refuse to justify yourself, you deny them the position of the judge. They are left holding a script that makes absolutely no sense without your opposing dialogue. The deep psychology of their meltdown centers entirely on the fact that they are suffocating because they realize they finally have to breathe their own toxic air, and it is choking them to death. Their panic is the frantic flailing of a creature that has just realized it cannot survive without the host it was actively trying to destroy. Imagine a massive parasitic vine that has spent years wrapping itself around a majestic oak tree, feeding off the tree's sap, claiming the tree's height as its own, and attempting to quietly strangle the very branches that support it. Now, imagine the tree simply vibrating at a frequency so high, so pure, that the vine's grip instantly shatters. The vine falls to the cold, hard earth, permanently disconnected from the life source. It writhes, it thrashes, it tries to reach out its tendrils to reattach, but the tree has grown entirely out of reach. That vine is your imitator, your secret hater, the covert narcissist in your life. They are currently writhing on the ground of their own reality, completely unable to generate their own nourishment. Or think of a frantic lunatic standing outside a massive, bulletproof, soundproof room, screaming and throwing rocks to get your attention while you sit inside comfortably reading a book. Your energy is a sacred resource, meticulously cultivated through years of hardship, spiritual refinement, and profound healing. It is not meant to be a feeding trough for those who refuse to heal themselves. By radically withdrawing your life support, you not only protect your own elevation, but you force them to face the terrifying, echoing emptiness of their own unhealed trauma. Let them thrash. The universe is watching the towering, unbothered majesty of the tree you have become. Step 4. Observe the frantic interrogation of your peace and refuse to hand them the blueprint of your survival. One of the most bizarre, highly validating, and deeply uncomfortable phenomena you will experience as a chosen one is the sudden, obsessive interrogation launched by your hidden enemies when they realize they cannot destroy you. The title of this message states that they have questions, and you need to understand exactly what that looks like in the physical and psychological realm. When a highly performative, envious individual witnesses your miraculous survival and your sudden, undeniable elevation, their brains simply cannot compute the incoming data. Because they operate entirely on mechanics, manipulation, and worldly leverage, they genuinely believe that you must be doing the exact same thing behind the scenes. They cannot comprehend the concept of unmerited grace, deep spiritual alignment, or divine protection. Therefore, they assume you have discovered a secret loophole, a hidden cheat code to life that they do not possess. This initiates a phase of frantic, obsessive, voyeuristic interrogation. This is exactly why you are suddenly noticing the flying monkeys, the mutual friends or distant acquaintances who unexpectedly reach out just to check in, asking highly specific, probing questions about your finances, your relationships, your state of mind, or your next moves. This is why they are obsessively stalking your social media from fake accounts, meticulously analyzing your posts, your tone, the background of your photos, desperately trying to find the crack in your armor. They are actively, frantically hunting for the source of your peace. They think you have a secret benefactor, a hidden bank account, or a new, highly effective manipulative strategy. They cannot fathom a heart that simply rests in the assurance of the Creator. Contrast your organic, fluid, deeply internal peace with their synthetic, constantly shifting, hyper-vigilant paranoia. You are living your authentic life. They are living simply to watch you live your life, seething with a jealousy they cannot even articulate. You possess a deep internal knowing that requires zero external validation, while they require constant external validation just to maintain the illusion that they exist. Their complete reliance on a blueprint is their ultimate weakness. They need a step-by-step guide to everything because they have absolutely no internal intuition. The deep psychology here reveals a profound fear of your unbothered peace. Your peace implies that the war they are fighting against you is a one-sided delusion. Because they operate mechanically, they are trying to measure the wind with a plastic ruler. They are aggressively tearing down the drywall, trying to find the physical copper wires of a completely wireless divine miracle. It is an exercise in profound absurdity. Watching them interrogate your life is like watching a bewildered, arrogant mechanic take a heavy wrench to a living, breathing, ancient forest tree, aggressively trying to unbolt the bark to figure out where the engine block is located. It is a fundamental, hilarious misunderstanding of the material they are dealing with. They will never find the answers they are looking for because the source of your protection is internal, divine, and locked away in a spiritual vault they do not have the energetic clearance to access. Do not give them the blueprint to your fortress. In fact, you must deeply realize that there is no blueprint for them to steal because your fortress is made of pure light and they only know how to operate in the dense, heavy shadows. When they make passive-aggressive comments, attempting to bait you into explaining your joy, you must become a polished mirror that reflects nothing but their own desperate searching back at them. When you deliberately refuse to decode your survival for them, you plunge them into a terrifying sensory deprivation tank where the only thing they can hear is the loud, echoing emptiness of their own lives. Your silence is not just a boundary, it is a declaration of absolute sovereignty. Let them ask their questions. Let them dig through the dirt looking for your secrets until their fingernails bleed. The more they search, the more exhausted they will become, and the more undeniable your anointing will prove to be. You owe them absolutely nothing but the view of your back as you walk confidently into your promised land. Step 5. Transmute the heavy, toxic lead of their projected malice into the highly combustible fuel for your inevitable ascension. Every single accusation, criticism, and piece of vicious slander that these toxic, performative people hurled at you was never actually about you. This is one of the most difficult, yet profoundly liberating psychological truths to internalize when you are in the thick of the spiritual battle. When someone systematically tries to tear you down, it feels incredibly personal. It feels like a direct, objective assessment of your worth. But in the realm of lower frequency human behavior, every accusation is merely a confession. Projection is the primary, desperate defense mechanism of a stagnant, rotting soul. You must deeply analyze the exact nature of their attacks to understand what they are truly terrified of within themselves. When they looked at your unyielding discipline, it triggered their deep shame over their own chronic laziness, so they called you obsessive. When they looked at your profound empathy, it triggered their guilt over their own transactional, cold nature, so they called you fake. When they encountered your ironclad boundaries, it triggered their blinding rage over their lack of control, so they loudly labeled you arrogant or difficult. They took all the rotting, unhealed, deeply ugly parts of their own psyche, wrapped them up in a carefully constructed narrative, and tried to hand them to you as a gift. For a long time, out of pure empathy, you accepted the package. You opened it, internalized the poison, and spent agonizing nights wondering if they were actually right about you. You let their distorted carnival funhouse mirrors dictate your self-image. But the major turning point in the life of a chosen one occurs when you stop defending yourself against their projections and start actively transmuting them. You must learn the ancient, sacred art of spiritual alchemy. Contrast their heavy, dense, toxic output with your miraculous ability to process, refine, and elevate energy. While they are suffocating under the weight of their own bitterness, you are using that exact same bitterness as the raw material for your own expansion. You must take the dense, heavy lead of their envy and transmute it directly into the brilliant gold of your ascension. They deeply resent you because your mere existence proves that healing is a choice, and they chose to stay broken. The deep psychology of their panic is that the specific areas they attacked most fiercely are the exact coordinates where your greatest divine power resides. They thought they were burying you beneath the sheer weight of their judgment and sabotage. They threw dirt on your name, dirt on your character, and dirt on your future. But they made one massive, catastrophic miscalculation. They didn't realize you are a seed. The dirt they threw on you was the exact perfect environment you needed to break out of your shell, establish your roots, and grow toward the sun. Their resistance became your spiritual gymnasium. You used the heavy gravity of their hatred to build the undeniable muscle of your conviction. They are currently melting down because they accidentally trained you for the promotion they were actively trying to prevent. Your light is acting as a terrifying mirror, and they cannot stand the reflection. Think of a massive, heavy, intensely hot blast furnace. They thought they were throwing you into an incinerator to watch you burn to ashes and disappear forever. But you are not made of dry wood. You are made of raw, unrefined steel. The intense heat they applied did not destroy you. It melted away the impurities, the self-doubt, the people-pleasing tendencies, and forged you into an unbreakable, razor-sharp sword. They are shocked by your protection because the weapon they formed against you was literally melted down and recast into the crown that is now sitting firmly upon your head. The pain was excruciating, the betrayal was deep, but the residue of their toxicity is now the highly combustible rocket fuel propelling you out of their atmosphere forever. You do not owe them a single word of thanks, but you can quietly smile at the absolute poetic perfection of divine justice. They entirely powered your launch with their own hatred, and they are left staring up at the sky, wondering how you flew so high. Step 6. Anchor yourself in the terrifying, magnificent freedom of your divine isolation, and stop mourning the exit of the unqualified. The path of the chosen one is inherently, unapologetically, and unavoidably lonely. There is absolutely no escaping this reality. You have spent recent months, or perhaps even years, mourning the profound loss of people you deeply loved. You watched as friend groups dissolved overnight, family members turned their backs, and partners who promised you forever suddenly morphed into strangers holding daggers. You have cried an ocean of tears over this intense isolation, viewing it as a punishment, a curse, or a glaring sign that you are somehow fundamentally flawed and impossible to love. You must completely and violently shatter this perspective right now. Your isolation is not a punishment, it is a sacred divine quarantine. You have been systematically and intentionally removed from the general population because your spirit is undergoing a highly sensitive, miraculous surgery. The sterile, quiet environment of your solitude is absolutely necessary to prevent infection from the stagnant, complacent, and toxic energies of the people who used to surround you. You must actively contrast your sacred, protective quarantine with their crowded, noisy echo chamber of yes-men and enablers. The imitators, the performative actors, and the toxic competitors cannot survive in isolation. Their entire identity is crowdsourced. If they do not have an audience to applaud them, an enemy to fight, or a victim to manipulate, they literally cease to exist. They are like shallow, parasitic weeds that must tangle their roots with everything around them just to stay upright. You, on the other hand, are being forged into a solitary, towering oak tree. Your roots must bypass the shallow topsoil of societal validation and reach deep down into the molten core of eternal truth. The deep psychology of their shock is rooted in their absolute fear of being alone with themselves. They assumed that by abandoning you, they were leaving you to die of exposure. They are completely shocked that you survived isolation without their validation. They thought your solitude would break you, completely ignorant of the fact that your solitude is exactly what built you. The people who left your life, or the people you had to forcibly evict with your new boundaries, were simply unqualified to enter the next chapter of your destiny. They did not have the energetic security clearance to access the rooms you are about to walk into. If the divine had allowed them to stay, they would have acted as massive, heavy anchors, dragging you back down into the muck of their unhealed trauma and their petty, exhausting dramas. They never anticipated that the wilderness would become your greatest sanctuary. Think of this dynamic metaphorically. You are a massive rocket ship breaking through the Earth's atmosphere. The gravitational pull is intense, and the heat is absolutely terrifying. But as you hit orbit, you must shed the heavy, cumbersome booster stages that got you off the ground. Those booster stages were necessary for a season, but if they remain attached, they will drag the ship back down to crash into the Earth. The toxic relationships and the performative friends are the dead weights you must permanently detach. Alternatively, imagine throwing a massive industrial stadium light into a pitch-black, roach-infested room. The pests scatter in absolute terror because the light destroys their comfortable delusion. Your isolation is simply the room being cleared of pests by the blinding light of your alignment. It is time to stop mourning the exit of people who only loved the version of you that they could easily control. Stop holding elaborate emotional funerals for relationships that were actively poisoning your bloodstream. Embrace the magnificent, terrifying freedom of this empty space. It is a blank canvas, a cleared runway, an open sky with absolutely no ceiling. The only reason it feels so vast and intimidating right now is because you are finally free to stretch your wings to their absolute, majestic wingspan, and you are realizing for the very first time just how incredibly large your spirit actually is. Let the unqualified walk away. They are simply making room for the extraordinary. Step 7. Accept the ruthless finality of your elevation and completely decouple your self-worth from the matrix they worship. We have reached the absolute culmination of your current trial, and this final step is entirely non-negotiable. You are standing on the precipice of a completely different reality. The heavy iron door that the darkness has been desperately trying to keep shut is currently swinging wide open, and the brilliant light pouring through it is absolutely blinding. But to step through this door, to fully claim the profound promotion that is waiting for you, you must accept the absolute, ruthless finality of your elevation. You cannot bring the heavy baggage of your past into the pristine palace of your future. You cannot maintain a foot in two different worlds. The people who are currently shocked by your protection, who are asking frantic questions, who are secretly hoping you will stumble, they absolutely cannot come with you. And more importantly, you must completely, permanently release the ego-driven desire to show them what they are missing. The ego wants a dramatic, cinematic revenge. The ego wants to invite them to the banquet just to make them sit at the very back and watch you eat. But the spirit, the true, elevated, chosen one, requires absolutely no audience for its victory. The warfare you have been experiencing is fundamentally a clash of dimensions. It is a violent collision between the artificial, performative matrix that your imitators worship and the deep, organic, subterranean reality of your divine calling. To survive and thrive in this new season, you must utterly and completely decouple your self-worth from the matrix they operate within. Contrast your vertical, infinite momentum with their cyclical, worldly algorithm. Toxic individuals build their entire existence on external metrics. They are obsessed with optics, fake networks, superficial status symbols, and the fleeting approval of people they secretly despise. When they look at your quiet seasons, your isolation, and your lack of frantic self-promotion, they mistakenly believe you are failing. But while they are busy painting the exterior of a crumbling shack to make it look like a mansion on social media, you have been digging the foundation for a skyscraper in the dark. Your momentum is strictly forward and absolute. Their history is looping endlessly and tethered heavily to the ground. The deep psychology of their ultimate meltdown is that they have entirely lost their role as the directors of your downfall. They have absolutely no control over your timeline anymore. They are frantic because their entire identity was tied to being the authors of your destruction. Without you playing the victim, they do not know how to play the victor. They are suddenly thrust into a reality where you are manifesting incredible opportunities, surrounded by authentic love, and stepping into an abundance that entirely defies their miserable predictions. They cannot edit your scenes anymore. They cannot cut your microphone. They are forced to sit in the dark audience, completely powerless, watching you ascend into a masterpiece they never authorized. This is why they are shocked by your protection, because it is the undeniable evidence that a much higher authority is now writing your story. Metaphorically, it is exactly like a furious, egotistical movie director screaming cut through a megaphone, entirely red in the face, veins popping out of their neck. But the actor they are screaming at has suddenly grown magnificent, glowing wings, and is simply lifting off the stage, flying higher and higher into the infinite, brilliant sky, leaving the artificial set entirely behind. The director's screams fade into pathetic, tiny squeaks in the wind. That is you. You have taken flight. You are now standing behind 3 feet of reinforced, bulletproof glass, calmly drinking your coffee while watching a rainstorm of their petty arrows shatter upon impact right in front of your face. Close the door. Lock it tightly from the inside. They will knock. They will invent entirely new fictional narratives to explain why you left. Let them paint whatever picture helps them sleep at night in their stagnant reality. Their opinions are completely stripped of their power. The war of this specific season is definitively over, and the era of your unprecedented, undeniable reign is beginning. Zooming out to look at the grand, breathtaking architecture of what has just transpired in your life, you must realize that your alignment is the real target. The chaos, the rapidly unmasking imitators, the frantic haters, the deeply absurd displays of performative jealousy, absolutely none of this is about you failing. It is all desperately pointing to the undeniable fact that your profound, immovable alignment is absolutely terrifying to the forces of stagnation. The enemy wanted to lower your vibration so you would miss the door that is opening right now, but you held your ground. You do not need to orchestrate revenge against those who tried to bury you. You do not need to lower your vibration to explain the mechanics of your reality to those fiercely committed to misunderstanding you. Your continuous, silent, unstoppable growth is the ultimate verdict. The universe has already judged the situation, and the gavel has fallen heavily in your favor. If this message resonated with the deep truth in your spirit, if it articulated the exact madness you have been observing in your life, do not leave without subscribing to the channel. Hit the like button, drop a comment with what point hit you hardest, and share the video with someone who needs this confirmation today. Your victory is imminent. The door is opening. Keep your eyes forward, ignore the crumbling noise of the old matrix, and step fully into the light of your calling. Stay chosen, stay blessed.